session is something I've entitled Purposeful Movement, and I guess that's opposed to movement with no purpose. And you kind of laugh at that, but I will tell you, a lot of movement goes on in music classes and in children's church choirs that has no real purpose except to have fun. And they're just trying to create a diversion and get those final 10 minutes something to do. What a shame. The purposeful movement, I think it was probably, just the phrase was probably coined by High Scope. If y'all familiar with them and all their movement stuff. And that's the CDs, records, that dates me, doesn't it? The CDs that I've been using a lot just to play come in instrumental are from that 9-CD series called Rhythmically Moving, and that's on the back of your resource list. But I love that music, as I said, because it's no vocals, it's from all over the world, it's some sort of unusual things, and it gives us a lot of freedom to explore different moods and different expressions in music in our bodies. And I remember, always remember, the smaller the child, the more important it is for them to experience it in their body. But also inexperienced children. I mean, I don't care if they're 5th, 6th grade, if they haven't, it's interesting to me, when you do this kind of stuff with them, with expression, they will sing with more expression. Because they have, for the first time, it's been brought to their attention that music has mood, that music has expression. And it's much easier to get them to sing with expression if they have first expressed in their body. So I encourage you to use movement, and usually when we say movement, we think steady beat. But we're going to explore that a little deeper today and apply that to some of the other elements of music. We're going to start first, though, with the elemental baby stuff. It's the one called Sequence of Teaching Steady Beat Through Movement. Now, I need 2 volunteers that don't mind sitting on the floor. There's one. Anybody else? Okay. You 2 will start. I'll get you in a minute. All right, let's come down here so more people can see you. All right. Sit back to back with arms length. And back to back, arms length.
We do have to stand up.
No, you're not right. This is pretty easy. Now, notice what I'm going to do here. We're just going to rock and sing. So y'all sing with me. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Now notice what's happening. I can control the whole choir this way because I put them in pairs this way. And by standing at the front pair and helping them move, we can control the whole choir. Now, notice, because in a minute this is going to come back up, are we dealing with the walking quarter note steady beat, or are we dealing with the half note? We're dealing with half note. And that is what most experts say that the small child should experience first in steady beat, that they should experience a steady half note. And the first time I heard this about 20 years ago, I thought, because what had I done? I'm not going to make y'all say that record. I had done the walking beat. You're not going to sleep today. All right, here we go. Now let's do it again. And let's sing with them. And now that y'all understand what we're doing, we'll rock a little more. Here we go. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Now, the other way to use rocking is turn around and face each other, knees bent, put the bottoms of your feet together and clasp hands. See? Uncross your legs.
Oh, okay.
Bottoms of your feet, like this. Soles
of your feet.
Soles.
Like
of our own feet. Like your feet.
Like that.
Like
there you go.
Okay.
I've never had a child that had this much problem with this. Okay, here we go. Ready, go. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Let's give them a hand. rocking beat. It's the same beat you have in a child in a rocking chair. Now that I'm back to rocking grandchildren, I think of that so much. It's the very same beat. So stop and think about it. If you're going to start, if you're going to begin at a place where the child is, where do you start? You start with the rocking beat. That's the first beat they've experienced. And I will tell you, you cannot really do this with older children unless I bring in a group of younger children and get my older children to be the leaders of the groups and sit in the front and demonstrate. And I've gotten my older children to participate in this by having them lead the first through third grade choir. Because a lot of them need that experience, that just slow, steady beat. So that is the essential thing. If children don't have steady beat, that is where you begin. Now notice number 2 on the sheet, and everybody read those 6 words and underline it or circle it. What does it say? Steady. All right, one more time, all together with unison and great faith. Steady
begins in the body.
Absolutely. If a child can't keep a steady beat, you must begin in the body. They've got to feel it. I use the word internalize the beat. And they can't do that externally, you know. It's got to be something they feel in their body. And this, you know, it's amazing to me, but a lot of people don't make this connection. Before a child can play an instrument in a steady pattern or any pattern, they've got to be able to perform that rhythm in their body. And so in other words, a child must internalize the beat before they can reproduce it on an instrument. It makes perfect sense, but somehow I notice a lot of people get the cart before the horse and they start passing out instruments, have a terrible management problem in their classroom. And it is okay to say to the children over and over again, we are here to make music, not noise. If you can only make noise, you have to return your instrument and lose your turn. And do it. It's just one way of managing your classroom. We've already talked about number 3, but I want to go back to that again since we're talking steady beat. So, if you're going to put movement in your body, where do you begin? Bilateral. Both sides of the body doing the same thing at the same time. This is number 3 on your sheet. And by the way, clapping is a midline movement. It is not a bilateral movement. And patching, which is just patting knees, is the best bilateral movement. And by that, I mean it's the simplest for them to do. And so you want to make sure that they can kind of do that before you start moving it around on your body. And then look at the examples of bilateral movements. You know, flapping your arms is a bilateral movement. Waving your hands. And notice I'm doing it in the same direction. Patting your tummy, scratching your jaws, beating your chest, flipping your ears. Those are all bilateral movements. Now, kids love to do that up through about 4th grade. 5th and 6th grade have done this a lot, so you have to get a little more creative with 5th and 6th grade. But, you know, think in terms of things I might like to do, like, you know, shooting a bow and arrow, or, you know, hitchhiking, things that they can never do. I've seen things you can never do in real life, you can only do in choir, you know, you can hitchhike. But, you know, think of some little motions that would be different for them. Now, the next thing we're going to move down to, and this is the one that probably, when I learned this, made the biggest difference in my being able to work with younger children. Because I'll be honest with you, every time I picked up anything in curriculum that said to have children tiptoe around the room or gallop around the room, I just went, oh, that'll be havoc. And so I did, because I didn't really know how to manage it. And as a result of that, my children at that time missed some great movement experiences because of my inadequacy and my being intimidated about how to manage it. So, I went to a workshop with High Scope years and years ago and learned how to manage it, and this works very well, so I want to share it with you. Now, these are sequenced, not up and down, but just left and right. And we're going to get up and demonstrate this, but I'm going to show them to you as we do. Walking in a steady beat precedes marching. Now, can anybody tell me why? Look at marching.
Corporate movements.
It does, and you have to anticipate this. It's the timing of it. The child has to get that, you've got to get the leg up if you're going to come down on the beat. The walking beat is just pretty straight on. You can get there in just one move, as you said. So, if your children have no experience with locomotor movement, you really want to begin with walking to the beat, walking in a circle, walking to the beat. Because, and it's interesting to me, if I pick up curriculum, I don't care who's written it, and the first thing they have for the first unit in August or September is marching. I go, no, whoever did this didn't know, because, yes, recently they do it all the time because they're not using teachers, excuse me.
Well, it's one of these deals where you look at it and think, I didn't know it till you talked about it, but it just didn't seem right. It's, like something in it didn't work, so I just went back to walking because it wasn't working with
No, it's not working because it's harder. And
I was having no trouble.
something you just said is what I want to measure on here. You said it just didn't seem right to me. I'll tell you why I love this. The first time I ever saw this, it was like, that's it. I know some stuff wasn't right, but I just didn't know why. And I didn't understand what to do. But, so anyway, everybody get up, and we're going to come back a big circle down here and let this be the middle. Just kind of let this be our circle. Just give yourself some movement around. Okay? Now, yes, that was the next thing we're going to do. A couple of techniques. First of all, if you had been children, I would have asked you to tiptoe down here while I counted to 15 or something, because your transitions are very important. Y'all moved very nice, and you did a good job. But you know that if I had said that to a group of first graders, they would have jumped over chairs, stepped over, knocked each other down, So you say things like, tiptoe very slowly to my count, and I'll give you 12 counts to do it, or 11 counts, or whatever. So that's how we would have transitioned to this.
One thing, my kids are usually sitting in like 4 little lines on the floor in a classroom, and we stand up and face one direction, and I take a line, and they follow the leader in the next line, and we're singing usually while we do
That's
it.
a good transition. And a good thing she's pointed out, you may not have this space in your room. So another thing you can do is to let half choir move while half patch, do bilateral movements in their seats, or even a third move while 2/3 do something else. You have to get creative with whatever space you have. Now, for right now, we're just going to walk in a circle. And the way we're going to do it is just, but here's what I want you to learn. The children need to verbalize with you. Do you know why that is? Okay, I haven't really said this exactly, but let me give you a little cue on this. You remember our learning styles, Charlotte's 3, that, I've reduced all the ones the whole world says to 3, which is really arrogant of me, isn't it? Okay. Kinesthetic, tactile, oral, and visual. Now, I want to tell you a little trick about teaching. Anytime you can involve all 3 of these at once, learning goes up, it shoots up to about, or retention goes up to over 80%. If you can involve 2 of them, I don't know the exact statistics anymore, but it's something like retention is, 40 or 50% if you're doing 1.
I'll just give you an example real quick. I teach ESL, or did teach ESL.
Yes.
And I happened to be at one summer school. I had a student who was hearing impaired, and she did the sign language, and we did the oral with the kinesthetic, because they could see. I cannot believe how fast they were picking
Yes.
up the English
Yes.
language. I couldn't get
But that's why. I mean, people have tested this. So, watch what we're going to do. We don't have the music on right now. So the oral is going to be my voice. But it doesn't really kick in until it's your voice too. So the kinesthetic is we're doing the walking, right? The visual is we get to see each other. We're in a circle. And we're adding that oral component by we're all going to say this. Now that is so important because if the child is not speaking and coordinating with his feet, they may just walk any old way they want to. But something about making them say it creates that. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do to make this a little bit better. We're just going to add a drum sound. Here we go. Now, boys and girls, we're going to have 4 getting ready beats. Before we start walking, we're just going to walk in a circle. 1, 2, ready, go. Walk, 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 stop. Did anybody catch what I did?
Change the accents.
Yes. After we got started and y'all had the rhythm down, I started accenting the first beat, then I added the third, so that by the time we were ending, you were really feeling that walk, walk. Now notice I did not tell the child which foot to start on. Do you know why I didn't?
Some do with their left, some with their right.
Absolutely. You want the child to naturally start on his dominant foot so that he feels the strength in his dominant side, so he feels the strong beat. But one thing you need to watch for, Christopher, if you were having trouble, and let's say that I've been noticing that you were right-handed, and I happened to notice that you were using your left foot for beat 1, I can almost immediately correct your inability to do the steady beat by getting your feet changed.
There's also the weird ones, like my daughter, who is right-handed in everything except sports. She's right-handed.
See, I'm like that. I do some things one-sided, some things two, you know. And so, for instance, I will often, I don't know how many of you water ski, but when I slalom, I put the opposite leg in front from the one I should. So, a lot of people do those kinds of things, but as long as they're performing okay, you know, there's no problem. But, you know, it is a mistake to say everybody started on the right foot. Because for the child that's his non-dominant side, it's going to be a struggle for them to feel the beat on their non-dominant side.
It's like they're inside out.
Exactly. It feels weird to them. And in a minute, when you gallop on your non-dominant side, you're going to feel the weirdness. Okay, so always walking precedes marching. Now, let's all march the same way, and you're going to see, just experience the child having to anticipate the beat. Now, keep in mind, you don't really want to move to marching until a majority of your children are walking to the steady beat fairly successfully. All right, boys and girls, this time 4 get ready beats, and then we're going to march. And boys and girls, when you march, and I'll tell you, a lot of them, most children know what marching is now, but if you were working with disadvantaged children or children that come from homes where they've not been exposed to very much, they might not know what marching is. And the easiest thing in the world to do is just take your local marching band, go out to practice. In fact, most band directors, high school band directors, have tapes of their kids marching already, and show it to your kids and let them see what marching looks like. And they really don't know. You know, and I love high-step marching. If you're on the film thing, film high-step. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, start. March, march, march. Say it. March, 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 march. Start. Very good. Now, the next one is pretty easy, jumping and hopping. It's interesting to me how many people go straight to hopping. Now, if a child cannot jump is 2 feet. They sure can't hop. So, we're going to jump. Now, we're not going to make it because it'll kill us. But jumping precedes hopping. But now, when you get to hopping, you let them hop on the side they want to. But then you switch to the other side. Right now, let's just hop 4 beats on your dominant side in a circle. 1, 2, ready, stop. Hop, 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 hop. Now, try to do it on the non-dominant side. Even that's going to feel shaky. 1, 2, ready, go. Hop, 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 hop. Doesn't it feel less secure? Okay. Now, here's the neat part. If you can correct that, if you can strengthen the child's non-dominant side, which is what children used to do when they played outside and did jump rope and played chase when I grew up, it strengthens and makes the connections, the neurons and connections grow in the brain. So let's all stop and think here. Why are Johnny having such trouble reading? Because Johnny doesn't have gross motor skills. He's not been running, jumping rope. You know, I just don't get why the educators haven't figured this out. Because this is a known fact among neurologists and people that study the brain. And one reason I stayed up on this, and I will just tell you, I mentioned that my mom had early onset Alzheimer's, and I'm part of a national study at Johns Hopkins because there is a very 98.9% chance that I will have Alzheimer's. Everyone in my family had it, but my mom was the first that had early onset. So, you know, I go out there once a year and, you know, do a bunch of stuff. And I keep up on developments in brain research because obviously it interests me. But this whole business of training the child to use his non-dominant side, it makes reading easier. And we were talking about John Farland, and I first heard him say this how many years ago that he said they had done research in Connecticut, and they know that you can take a child who's having trouble reading, put them on a mini trampoline, and do steady beat rhythm activities, their ability to read will improve. I mean, it's just an amazing thing. So here we come from God again, you know, interestingly enough. If you get these children moving in your choir and give them some non-dominant experiences, you're also helping them with everything else that God intended for them to be. And I think that's such a great gift to know that you can be a part of not just their spiritual and musical education, but their whole self, which is actually what we should be doing anyway. So, hopping on that non-dominant side, and I will tell you, for some children, it's very difficult. So, if they are, do a line of chairs and let them hold while they hop, you know, and just give them that experience. And put some cute music on, and let them hop slow. Don't have them, you know, hop, 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 hop like a bunny. You know, tell them it's a tire bunny. So we're going to hop to the half note beat. All right, then the next one is running precedes tiptoe. You really don't have to practice this much. I've never seen too many children that could run. But tiptoeing comes next, and there is obviously a way to tiptoe. We're going to do the same thing. Let's tiptoe in a circle. And this is where we get to use our eighth note and introduce our eighth note. And you might want to use a word. You can use tiptoe, 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 tiptoe. So we'll do that right now. And so listen, boys and girls, and when I say the word start, we'll go. Tiptoe, 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 tiptoe. Oh, okay. My bad. Tiptoe, 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 start. Tiptoe, 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 tiptoe. Bop, bop. I usually have a stick that I can stop right there. Okay. So we do that. Now we get to the really interesting part. Skating precedes sliding. Now, I had to think about this one for a while, but I'm firm on it now. Skating is when, just like roller skates, You know, the foot comes up. Now watch what mine do. The foot literally comes up. You know, how many of you roller skate? The foot pretty much comes up. The back foot pretty much leaves the ground, you know, when you get that motion like that. Because that's what keeps your balance. Okay. That is actually easier for children than sliding. Because sliding, the foot never leaves the floor. And I did not believe that the first time I heard it describe it, it is. If you ever use it with children, you'll see they have difficulty sliding.
Well, adults have a hard time with this skating.
They do.
I'm a personal trainer, and we do that speed skater exercise, and they can't do it. None of my clients can do it right, except for my figure skater.
You know why? Because people don't skate as much as they used to.
Yes.
That's it.
I have to do it in slow motion and behind. It's hilarious.
But I'm gonna tell y'all, she's made a good point. Again, our society has changed. I'm gonna tell you, when I was growing up, nobody had to teach kids to gallop. Because in 1950s, when I was growing up, we all knew how to gallop. We played cowboys and Indians. You know, stick horse, Lone Ranger was big in my house. And we all knew how to gallop. Now you have to teach children to gallop. It is crazy, which is what we're going to learn next. Okay, now the best way to teach children to gallop is basically everybody fix your legs, and the horse is in here. So now I'm telling y'all right now, these legs cannot come together because you're going to squish that horse to death, okay? So basically, the front leg, front foot steps, and then you hop onto the back foot. So you lean into it, step, hop. Now, everybody remember the horse is in here. You can't just put your legs together. Okay. So everybody pretend like you're holding the horse. Okay. Now, watch me a minute. Don't do it, just watch. Step, then hop. Step, then hop. Step, then hop. Step, then hop. And if you rock with it, you'll feel the motion. Now, I'll see if you can do it. 1, 2, 3. It's really a 1, 2, 3. Step, then hop. Step, then hop. Step, then hop. Say it, then hop. Step, then hop. Step, then hop. Step, then hop. Right, now. Change legs. Okay, other way. Here we go. Ready, go. Step, then hop. Step, then hop. Step, then hop. Step. Now, for how many of you did the opposite side feel very weird? Okay. Okay. Now, here's the interesting part about that. Skipping involves doing stepping and hopping with both legs. Step, then hop. See, bump, 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 bump. So, when you move to skipping, children who can't skip always have a weak, non-dominant side. But if you will have them gallop on the dominant side, and then teach them to gallop on the non-dominant side, they'll usually be able to skip. But some children are completely, that's a nice word for klutz. They're
Well, bless their hearts.
And they cannot skip because they have weak dominant side. So let's just try skipping. And remember, what you do with skipping is you step and hop on each foot. So this foot steps and then it hops, and that foot steps and hops. Ready, go. Coca-Cola. Let's do it. Good. Oh, I want to get you a little rhythm. You got it. Let's do it again. Stop. 1. We're going to do a 6-8 rhythm. Coca-Cola. 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 Peanut butter. Make a circle, baby. Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola. Peanut butter. Stop. Very good.
It was inside the contract.
I am inside the contract. See if I probably didn't bring the one that has that gallop on it. y'all can sit down. Okay. But that's just a little brief look at locomotor movement. Now, tell me this. Are you going to do those locomotor movements with your older children? No. And it would be. It would be. But I'll tell you this, you sure better do them with your preschool and younger children as far as you can get along with it. Because it just internalizes the movement. Now I get this one that looks a little bit go. As I said to you when we started this, movement is most oftenly identified with rhythm. And people, when they think movement, they think, well, you're teaching rhythm, you're teaching steady beat. And actually, there's all kinds of purposeful movement we can do that teach the other elements of music. Now let me just throw in a little segue here. Children need to move in every choir person. And by children, I mean the babies and the older children. For one thing, as we've all explored, most of us have choir in the evening. And if you haven't already heard me say it, I'll say it again. An attention span of a child is roughly 1 minute every year of their life in the morning. It's half that at night. So you're a seasoned teacher, you start laughing a little because you know it's true. Now, you think practically what this means. Your 8-year-old child, who's what, about a third grader, I could have an 8-minute attention span in the morning. That kind of works for you. But in the evening, when you have them, it's a 4-minute attention span. Even your older children, who are 12, 11 or 12, okay, 5 or 6 minutes. Now, what this means is, most children anthems, they'll usually tell you to figure 3 minutes. Just sing through a children's anthem. If you sing through it twice, they're done. You know? I mean, look at it like that. They're done. So, you better, that's why so many of the teaching plans incorporate movement to teach the song. Because they know that children in the evening, a seasoned teacher who's writing curriculum, knows that children in the evening are not going to sit in a chair while you rehearse measure after measure and part sing and do all this stuff. You will have management problems. And it's really not their fault. They've had it. They have completely had it. And I think in our society it's even worse than it used to be because most of them have been in school all day. Then they've gone to some after-school activity, be it baseball, swimming, horseback riding, piano lessons, you know, name it. There's gazillions of them. Then they come to church, whoop down to whatever, in our case, whoop down to whatever is in the church supper, and then go jump around in the gym to get sweaty before they come to me. So by the time they sit down in their chairs, I'm dealing with the grunges of the leftovers in their bodies, you know. Now, the reason that's important for you to know is if you don't do some movement to get them engaged, they literally can't hold on. They just can't hold on. And you will just be fighting behavior problems after behavior problems after behavior problems. So, it is essential to use movement. Then here's where I cross with a lot of people. If I'm going to use movement by cracky, it's going to be movement that teaches. It's going to be movement that has a purpose. Because I'm going to be a good steward of my time. And I'm not just going to do... There was a day when I was a young choir teacher that every time I saw them, you know, getting just beyond the ability to listen, I'd do a fun song. Now that's not a bad approach. I operated for years like that, you know, and there are things to be taught in the fun song. So that's not, I'm certainly not trashing that. But I realized, I'll tell you what happened to me, I'd always had an hour. Always had an hour. And in some cases, we really had a little over an hour. And then my church cut it to 40 minutes for a while. Now we're back up to an hour now, but during a former administration, they thought that'd be a good idea. So they could squeeze more activities into Wednesday night. So when we went from 40 minutes, from 60 minutes to 40 minutes, oh my. You know, I was just, my breath was taken away. I lost a third of my time. But you know how God blesses every situation. It made me learn to be a good steward. And so, I one year just decided I was going to do no fun songs and see if the children noticed. Y'all, to this day, they don't know. I don't do fun songs. So, we do other interesting, joyful stuff. But even those children who had been in choir with me for the 2 years before I pretty much quit doing fun songs, never once said, we hadn't done that fun song, or we hadn't done. And I thought, whizaroo. I mean, what does that tell you? But now, it doesn't mean we didn't move. It doesn't mean we didn't do joyful things. But I just stopped that business of, okay, they're getting lethargic, let's do a fun song. And I think I've become a better teacher. I know I have, because I'm much more purposeful about when I plan a lesson. And then I kind of right after that happened, I did a 6-week fill-in at one of our public schools at the end of the year, and they had 30 minutes, you know. And I thought, man, you can't mess around in here. You gotta, yeah,
20.
yeah. You just can't. 20?
I go down after I direct the anthem, and as long as the preacher speaks in the invitational anthem, that's what I have for children's choir. I have 20
Well,
minutes.
so you got to be a good steward. So let's agree that if you have a small amount of time, if you use movement, it better be purposeful movement. Now let's quickly look at what that means. And here's the interesting thing: you probably already know all this, but you just may not have thought of it as movement. Every element of a song can be taught with movement. Melody, what is your movement? So very in front of you, you can read your body signals and the Kodai hand signals. But it's movement. And this is why I like the body signals, because it's more movement. It's the whole body as opposed to just the hands. And if children need whole body movement, this is such an easy thing to stick in. And if you're going to teach a fun song, sing it with body signals and get some purposeful movement in there.
Does it ever affect their singing? I'm always worried about the body, you know, when they're going down like this, that it's going to mess up their production when they're working on things. Do you find that's a problem?
Well, there's not a whole lot of bending if you stop and think about it. And remember, we don't sign a whole song. I don't. You know, we're not going to stand there and sign or do body signals to an entire song. Usually what you're going to do is use it to teach, remember, as opposed to teach harmony or to teach a difficult phrase. And see, if they're sitting, there's really no bending at all. And even if they're standing, stop really good. You know, what, do you remember the lowest thing on the body signal? It's just here. And that is a little bend, but that's one pitch. And then you come up, so I don't think it, well, you know, they may not sound the best, but see, you're going to drop that. Well, yeah, you're going to drop that as soon as they learn it. It's just a teaching tool. Keep in your mind always that teaching tools would be different from performance level. A teaching tool is that, it's a teaching tool, and you'll probably drop it. Rhythm, we're going to come back to that. Forms, ways of doing form or painting phrases, you know, and actually giving them, you know, you can get those packages like at Walmart and Hobby Lobby of those cheap foam brushes. You know what I'm talking about? And they're really cheap. You can get a whole bunch for not much money. And that way they can actually have a paintbrush in their hand and paint the phrases. And that's even better than you're doing it, because you tell them, we can't breathe until we get to the end of the stroke. And you can paint this way too. But that is so good. That's teaches form. And then moving in different ways to each phrase. Like if smaller children, we might walk in a circle this way on one phrase and then turn direction, walk the other way, go back this way. It's teaching form. You're moving according to the phrasing or to the section of the movement. Expression, we've already done several things with mirroring, and I think all of you have been in here, but mirroring is a great way to teach expression, and that's movement. And again, the biggest thing about that is make sure you have a good selection of music so that they can experience lots of different moods as they mirror. And let the children take turns being, I call it the mirror leader. And the only rule is, there I have two rules. One rule is you must express the music. You can't just do anything you want to, because I'll pull you, I'll yank you if you don't express the music. And it has to be something that everybody can follow. Because you know, some kids will get up there and try to create the choreographed deal of the century. So it's got to be something all the rest of us can follow.
My daughter would sing.
Would
You're the only one in here that heard that.
That's a good point. Yes, you would always have that. Now, text. How do we move with text? We talked about this. Sign language, interpretive movement. So look and see, all of these are very purposeful movements, but they're movements. And it keeps those juices flowing, it keeps the child engaged. Now, let's go over some of these other things before we get out of here, because this is, after going to high school a number of years ago, I did another whole session with Libby Carlton. I don't know if they've ever had her here. She was one of high school's, well, she was high school's major trainer for quite a number of years. She's now semi-retired, but she's a movement specialist. And I, with her permission, put these guidelines here for you. For maximum retention, a child should repeat a song movement for 4 weeks. I've mentioned that to you before, and that is at least 4 weeks. An older children's anthem is 6. You know, so if you know you're going to be performing an older children's anthem, you need to start 6 weeks out at least. And if you know you're going to skip a week in there, you better start 7 weeks out, because if they've been out of choir for 2 weeks, it's in Never Never Land. Now, with younger and inexperienced children, always begin movement in the feet. You repeat for 1 minute in the feet before going to the upper body. Now, this is where, and that's a little bit different from what I showed you on the other handout, and I left that contradiction for a reason. I think that this is still the best movement to begin with. But I think that if you're going to do locomotor movement, you obviously want to begin in the feet. I don't think there's any point in putting children up in a room until they can do this. I mean, that seems contrary to me. But also, you'll keep in mind these movement specialists always have huge rooms for their movement. My daughter-in-law teaches at a nonprofit in Birmingham. It's called the Children's Dance Foundation, and they do movement and drama and art with small children. I wish you could see their rooms. They are enormous. Well, sure, everybody can get up and gallop, and everybody can walk, and everybody can do. I mean, they are just huge rooms. I've never seen rooms like this in a church. So that's why I still believe that patching, bilateral patching, is a better beginning movement. Then when you're ready to move the locomotor, you do want to move the feet. And here's what they mean by that, is repeat this in the feet before I move it anywhere else. Because that is unilateral. That's not bilateral. And we should do that for about a minute. I did learn this from Lisa Carlton. You need to let them get successful there before you move to the next close. The stepping beat, which is the quarter note, works better in the feet. But if it gets out of control, we'll go back to the rocking beat. And by that I mean if you have a lot of children who are unsuccessful, you go back to the rocking beat. Most of that's self-explanatory. All right, next page. With preschoolers, don't break the 3/4 rhythm into the stepping beat. What they mean by that is you can walk in 4/4 easily, that's not a problem. But you don't want to, they say, walk in 3/4. But I, of course, have a way to do that. What you do is take off one shoe, and this is how you have them walk. And most of them can do it. 5-year-olds can do this. And you go shoe, sock, sock, shoe, sock, sock, shoe, sock, sock, shoe, sock, sock. Natural 3/4 beat. It's just so easy. If you don't want to move around the room, the other one that I have found that just works so great, you just seat them. You can seat them on the floor and have them pat their chairs and give everybody a little pillow or a folded towel. And so this side, I put it back there, and it goes like this. I'll just go strong, 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 and they get the 3 beat. Either one of those 2 things. And I've never had a problem with that. In fact, it's how I taught my kids to do 3s. Number 6, I want you to quickly go through that. Midline movements. Crossing the midline is very important because when you cross the midline, that's when you are exercising those brains and those neurons and connectors are all working nicely. So you want to cross the midline. Crossing the midline is this. I'm crossing the midline. Now, that is a more advanced skill. You would not do crossing the midline with preschoolers. You can do clapping with, this is a midline movement, but it's not crossing the midline. So you can do clapping with preschoolers very easily. And by the time you get to the 1st through 3rd grade, I would start trying some simple crossing the midline movements, you know, and making sure that they can do that. But with older children, do a lot of it. I mean, and make it hard, you know, like, I mean, just, you know, and this is how you get by with doing movements with them. And if you mess up, they love it. You know, they just love it. I sometimes have to practice in front of the mirror before I go to choir because, you know, my brain ain't quick as it used to be. 8 is very important. Create some what they call, what does she call them? I call them what? She calls them static movements. These are spider fingers. Some people call them marshmallow fingers. That's great for preschool and younger children. When you're wanting them to do some movement, but you want them to be able to hear whatever's going. So that's very good. Silent rhythm sticks, you know. Finger sticks, you can just call them finger sticks. But those are very, very important to do. Now, this next one, I want to make sure we got this, because these 2 things are so successful. When we are doing, and I have trained every teacher in the younger choir rooms, you know, with this. Because let's say we are doing some kind of steady beat activity or we are playing instruments, and I just repeatedly see, Natalie, that you're just not quite on steady beat. Well, my teachers know without ever saying a word, you just keep playing whatever it is you're doing, come behind you, and just, it is so helpful. Now, if that doesn't work, you come around. Now, what you used to do, and children hated it. I remember my teacher doing it, I hated it. People would grab their hands like this and, you know, try to get them. That just feels, don't you just hate that? I just want to slap their faces, you know. But here is a new deal that works so well. You just link my thumbs, very lightly link my thumbs, and then you can do it. it feels so much less invasive and so much less controlling. And that's what you try if the shoulders don't work. And y'all, these two things work. And we even do them with older children. So we really try to make the shoulders work with the older children. The fourth graders don't mind you taking their hands. Fifth and sixth grade girls, not so much, but fifth and sixth grade boys aren't really into the hand holding part of their lives. Number 10, I'll give you another way of saying this. Anytime you're being the movement leader or you're letting a child be the movement leader, you want at least 25 or 30 seconds before you change leaders or motions. And that seems like a long time, but the younger the child, the more you need to continue with the same motion until they have it. Now, what you want to work up to, and this is your goal, is to have them doing the stepping beat in their feet while they're doing the rocking pattern in the upper body. So let's all do that. Now, we're going to start in our feet. So, we're going to do 12 and 16 beats for me now. That is what you want them to get up to. And, it doesn't have to be those exact motions, but you want to be able to keep stepping in the feet and rocking in the upper body at the same time. And then the rest of what I've done here is just to give you a movement vocabulary. Because I don't know if you're like I am, but I get up in front of the choir and I can't think of anything else to do. I was like, the only thing I can think of to do is clap and patch. My brain goes brain dead. And so what I've done is I've made a copy of this and I put it out every week on my stand so that if we need to do some movements, I can pull out something different than what I've done before. And the children are much more responsive. And and see some of the movements that are so good with rocking, that rocking motion, are pull and push. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a good, half-note movement. Okay, we've got about 4 minutes. Any questions? Doesn't even have to be about movement, about anything. Just let me say, as you're thinking, there was a school of thought for a while that said that you shouldn't do movement to sacred songs. And I don't ascribe to that, but I do think that the movement should match the mood of the hymn or whatever. Because to me, it's kind of like liturgical dance or anything else. But I don't think you want them hitchhiking to Amazing Grace. That just doesn't fit to me. So, and I think that's where the problem lies. Because the motion does not fit the content and the mood of the hymn. So if you're going to move to hymn music or to spiritual music, to anthems, choose a movement or choose movements like interpretive movement or something that expresses the movement. But if you're teaching straight rhythm, if you're teaching an anthem and those kids are having difficulty with a section here, use whatever you got to use because you're pulling just melody and rhythms out then. You're not really dealing with text. And by the way, don't try to have them sing. Like let's say we were working on that prayer of St. Francis of Assisi and there was just a section they just kept missing the rhythm. Pull it out and work with the rhythm, do some motions, do some movement. But while you're doing that, just have them sing a la. Why is that? Or a neutral syllable. Yes. Because if they're singing words and trying to work on rhythm, it's like stuff gets lost. And I'll give you a good example of that. And this is, oh, by the way, I'm going to tell this anyway. The younger the child, the harder it is for them to perform multiple tasks. And for example, if you take a preschool and they're singing pretty well, and you put motions to that song or give them all instruments, what's going to happen to the song? Exactly. Here goes the song. So, whatever you want to do in the performance, if they're going to perform for parents or whatever, you know if you try to get the whole choir to do motions or the whole choir to play instruments, your pretty song is going to be shot. So what you do instead is you might have a small group over here playing instruments or a small group doing the motions. And they all get to do them in rehearsal. But the night of the program, or if you're doing a little parent program, let them, different ones do different things, but not all at the same time. Because you can totally do it.